right, all you Yinzers, welcome to another episode of the Mad Chad and Eddie Show on the DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcast Network. As always, I'm your host, Eddie Provident. With me is my main man, Mad Chad Nolan. And, dude, it's just more of the same this week. It's more of the same. The offense didn't pull through, and the defense really didn't do anything this week. And it was another rough football game.
I mean, I had this as an L anyways. I said earlier in the week, I don't even care if they win. I just wanted them to play a competitive football game. And in their defense, that blocked field goal, that's one of the worst calls I've seen in a long time. They timed that snap perfectly. That's a 10-point swing. I still don't think they would have won the game, but maybe it's 27-24 as a final as opposed to 27-17.
The one thing that I would say with that is it's a 10-point swing in a 10-point game. And I realized that one of their touchdowns was kind of a garbage touchdown and, circumstantial, all that kind of stuff. But you go down at halftime by a field goal tied rather than down. What were they, 10 points at half?
Yeah.
So, that really does change the whole look of that game. But here's the thing, man. We saw an offense that looked like on that first drive, it had things figured out. Ben dropped a dime to Deontay. They were running the football. The offensive line wasn't great, but they were everything. Look, every episode that we've talked about the offensive line, what have we said? All they need to be is average.
And they were.
Right? We just need average. And they were an average offensive line for that first drive. And
actually,
I would argue they were an average offensive line for the bulk of that football game.
Yeah, Dan Moore was the only one that I know PFF grades aren't popular, but I like to look at them just to see if my eyes match up with them. And Dan Moore was the only lineman that got a failing grade for that game, and that kind of actually sums up the eye test. What's funny is it's funny when Joe Haig is an upgrade, but I said for a long time
he played good football, man. He played all right.
Let's be honest, man. He's better than Chooks, and I think Banner will be better than Chooks too. So
yeah, I think we're going to end up seeing when Banner is healthy. I would be shocked if we didn't see Haig and Banner at the tackle
either way,
positions.
New quarterback next year or not, which I think they'll have a new quarterback next year. Offensive tackle is that's just something they have to keep drafting because that's such an important position.
Or all of that free agent money, all that cap money they're going to have, go out and get somebody. They have to. They can't. They either have to get a big time name in the draft, or they have to get somebody in free agency, because they can't go into next year's season.
And corner as well. Corner is another thing that I know everybody wants a quarterback. And if we're being honest, I know it's hindsight's 2020 and it's easy to always play armchair GM and question what they did in the offseason, but we had all those offseason shows. I remember Derek Bell, who's going to be coming on the show again soon, said, hey, I think corner is a bigger need than they realize. And I'm not so sure about going into the season with Joe Hayden, Cam Sutton, and James Pierre, Arthur Mollett. And to be fair,
and it was to the point, like our draft special show, we went offensive tackle
and corner,
in our
remember, we wanted and Asante Samuel Jr. has been so good for the Chargers. And many of these rookie linemen, Sam Cosme, that was the guy that we took in the first round over Najee Harris, and he's been a beast for Washington.
Yeah, but I think, Chad, if we're gonna, and we've already halfway through the first segment here, but if we're gonna get into this and we're gonna talk about this football team, I think that there are probably 2 or 3 major things that need to be talked about out of this game. The first is Ben Roethlisberger did not look good at all.
Bad.
He missed a couple of throws that we are accustomed to Ben Roethlisberger making.
That could have been one of those classic Ben 3-4 touchdown, no interception games.
Exactly. Yep. And it wasn't, and that's a problem. Yeah. And I'm not ready, and this is going to be funny because I think you and I are normally on opposite ends of this argument. I'm not ready to just go ahead and say Ben's cooked, because every quarterback in the NFL has a bad game. And I don't think Ben was the problem in weeks 2 and 3. He was absolutely the problem in week 4. The offensive line was the problem in week 2 and 3. So I am not going to let one awful, and look, there's no sugarcoating it. It was a bad game by Ben after that first drive. He didn't look good. but I'm not ready to write him off over one game. Now, if we see that again next week, now it's, we're in trouble.
And I know we're going to go to our break, but that's the problem though, is like, I saw someone, now there's been some really anti-Ben hyperbolic stuff out there that I won't agree with. I'm trying to come to this as a rational position, but at what point, if like everyone keeps saying that, well, I'll give Ben one more game or I'll give Ben 2 more games, but also if he continues to play like that, now you just squandered away a couple more games. And at some point, when does the coach Tomlin and the players start to have some friction, because they're like, yo, you got to take this dude out of here because we're losing games?
For me, I look at it this way. Are we going to get better quarterback play out of Dwayne Haskins or Mason Rudolph?
The only thing Mason does better than Ben is right now he throws a better
deep ball.
They might get a couple big plays out of
that. But the thing with Mason and Dwayne Haskins, and we saw this in the exhibition games, they check down more than Ben does.
Yeah, wouldn't that be a hoot when they come in and
So here's my issue with throwing Ben out and just being done with him.
Yeah.
We're not going to get a substantial upgrade at quarterback with the guys we have on the roster. Okay. To me, the only one that has that potential is Dwayne Haskins with his physical ability, but he hasn't shown it mentally yet. And that's, that's a whole different discussion for a whole different time. So I would rather go into next week. Let's see what Ben has. Let's see. Now, it's a good defense. They're playing a Denver defense that so far, now I know that Denver's had a weak schedule so far, but they're playing a Denver defense that is on paper is a very good defense.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not, I know, just looking at this counts for nothing, but I was, kind of digging through my fantasy roster this week, and they're number 2 in fantasy football, which normally means they get after the quarterback, and normally means they produce turnovers and they hold teams to low scoring. So, I mean, that does count for something. They're a good defense right now.
Mm-hmm.
What I would say to that is, let's see what Ben does this week. Now, let's hope that Chase Claypool's back. Let's hope that that they have that they're healthy. Let's hope that the offensive line puts together another average, a decently average football game. And let's make sure that we get the run game going, because I think that the only way Ben is going to be successful, and we've been saying that, everybody in Pittsburgh has been saying this since the first week of training camp, is that if you want Ben to be successful, you have to establish the running game.
Absolutely.
So let's see if they can do that this week, and let's see how that plays out. If they're able to do that and Ben is still bad, then yeah, okay, now I start a lot more looking at, okay, it's time to start looking at switching quarterbacks. It's time to start just, admitting that this is probably a done deal. That's the first thing. And then we'll leave the teaser for the second thing. The second thing that I think needs to be talked about is that the defense didn't play good football either. The defense didn't look like you and I talked about them being a Super Bowl caliber defense. I know that on around the 4-1-2, when I was covering for Zach,
mm-hmm.
I talked with Tyler and said that, if this team has any chance, we're going to need, like, not on the level of the 1976 Steelers, but we're going to need a historic run from this defense. Like, they're going to have to be a top 3 defense in the NFL this year, and they're going to have to really get after teams. And they didn't do that this past week. You have a couple of theories as to why. One in particular that we're going to get to after the break. I have a couple of theories as to why. Let's see if we agree. We'll see. I don't know, but the defense, we can't sit here and say, well, Ben was bad and the offensive line is no good and this is that, and the offense sucks, and then leave the defense off the hook when they basically let Aaron Rodgers and the Packers move the ball at will, couldn't get off the field on third down, and didn't put the team in a good situation. So
yeah,
we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll talk about the defensive side of the football, and we'll see. We'll see if Chad and I agree, or if this is going to be another one of those Mad Chad and Eddie showdowns. So this is the Mad Chad and Eddie show on DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcast Network. We will be right back after this. welcome back to the Mad Chad and Eddie Show on the DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcast Network. I am your host, Eddie Provident. With me, as always, is my main man, Mad Chad Nolan. Chad, we left off in the first segment talking about the defense and the fact that they didn't play well on Sunday. I mean, we'll just call it what it is. They didn't look. I mean, they didn't look like a Super Bowl caliber defense, which this team needs. You have a theory, or at least you have a thought on one of the players on defense, and I'll let you take it from here.
Yeah. So here's the thing that's interesting. It's in Pittsburgh. It is so unpopular to criticize the defense, even when they're bad. Like, it's just like, if you listen to all the fan shows and go on social media, and yesterday I said, listen, I am not saying that Ben isn't one of the main problems. It sucks that people lack such critical thinking that you have to preface that just to let them know, hey,
spell it out for
right.
them, yeah.
But I keep seeing these things like, oh, well, the defense is on the field too much. Well, for one thing, in Green Bay, they were on the field at their own fault because they couldn't get a goddamn stop. Green Bay scored 3 straight possessions and had 3 straight possessions where they used over 4 minutes of clock. That's not on the offense. That's on the defense. Make a stop. And but where, and I'm you know me, I try not to be hyperbolic and I don't like to throw out hot takes, but by all accounts, if you go to whatever site you go to, whatever analyst you go to, go watch the All 22. We have to come to terms that Minkah Fitzpatrick has regressed since that All Pro season. He has now gone 11 consecutive games without an interception. And I know what people are going to say right away. Oh, well, offenses are avoiding him, but that's not true. He was targeted. That's why some of these stats, these advanced stats sites do have some merit. I think the player grading system sucks. But if you just look at like, this player was targeted this many times, that's a good stat to me. And Minkah Fitzpatrick he's not taking away zones anymore. In fact, a lot of times he's been late on coverage. He was late on coverage on the 1 touchdown pass in Green Bay. And now again, player grades, whatever, but he's the lowest graded player safety in the league right now.
I don't know how much stock I put in PFF.
What I do is I try to, I use my eyes, I watch the game, and then I go, it's the same thing I do with hockey. I don't go one way or another, but when I watch when I've watched Minkah this season, I don't think he's been good. Then I go to all these, and it's not just Pro Football Focus. There's other sites out there, Pro Football Network and stuff like that keep a lot of these stats, and they're all saying, yeah, he's not been good this year. So,
yeah, I know. I did see I think it was the first quarter or the second quarter. I know it was earlier in the game that he dropped an interception that was a clear overthrow by A-Rod, and
he was late getting there. If he gets there on time, he intercepts.
Well, I don't know if it was that. I mean, I tried to look. I tried to watch that play on replay, and it looked like he was kind of I think he was ready to go for the hit because the receiver. I think he thought the receiver was going to catch the ball. And so he had to change his body up at the last second. And, he just didn't get, he got his hands on the ball, but he didn't catch it. But the other thing with Minkah is he's a splash play guy. That is Minkah Fitzpatrick. He's a splash play guy. So he's, when he's not getting those interceptions, when he's not getting those forced fumbles and fumble recoveries, you see that okay, there's other parts of his game that are lacking. The one thing that I will say, and everybody's talked about this ad nauseum, so I'm not going to relitigate this whole offsides thing. But I think the conversation about Minkah, even though this is a special teams play, if that blocked field goal counts, if they don't get called offsides there, I think that the whole narrative about Minkah Fitzpatrick, especially if they win this game because of that blocked field goal, if the game's a completely different game, the whole narrative about Minkah, I think, changes a bit. Because he makes that, he not only does he get the block, but he recovers the block and takes it to the house. So I get where you're coming from, and from a purely defensive standpoint, he can be better. But I could say that about Joe Hayden, and I can say that about TJ Watt. I could say, TJ, and I know TJ Watt's been dealing with injuries, but he had 2 sacks on Sunday, and the 2 sacks were, one, he tripped Aaron Rodgers, and the second one, Aaron Rodgers kind of just ducked down and TJ tabbed him. So
I still think TJ's been good. The corners.
I think my point with this is there's not a position on this football team right now, save Cam Hayward, that I would say hasn't played, or that has played either above, to use a Tomlin phrase, played above the line.
I'll disagree there. I think Hayden and Watt have, especially Watt with dealing with injuries. He still leads the team in sacks and forced fumbles, and that's pretty crazy considering he's missed a game and played a game. Obviously, not 100%. So I'm not gonna say that about DJ Watt. Minkah. I mean, here's the thing about it though. Again, it's about at what point does a slump become just a trend? Because this is 11 games where. Have offenses figured him out? Have they figured out how to get around? Because 11 games, I mean, we're going on a goddamn full season of games where he just doesn't have any plays.
Yeah, and like another one, and we talked about this when it happened, but another, to your point, I'll help you.
Okay.
That the Riggs touchdown, or the Ruggs touchdown,
that was on him.
Yeah, he was the safety help on that side of the field. He got burnt. He bit on the pump fake to Waller. Now, in his defense, and we talked about this when the game, after that game, they game planned everything to stop Waller.
Yeah.
And so I think in that situation, on 3rd and 10, he's trying to stop their best playmaker from making a play, gets burned on the pump fake, and then you got the fastest guy on the football field one-on-one with a new corner. I think that was Witherspoon that got burned on that.
Yep.
And so you kind of you try to make the big play and you get burned on that one. If that ball goes to Waller and he ends up making a big play and breaks the pass up, but again, you could say if all you want, he was the responsible party there. So,
but again,
I go ahead.
No, so the cornerback, I'm glad you brought up cornerback because we've beat up last week. We did this whole thing about why didn't they, why their offseason didn't make any sense in terms of the offensive line. But cornerback, going back to that as well, they had the cap space. They should have brought either Hilton or Nelson back. I don't care what anybody says. To go into this season with Cam Sutton and Joe Hayden, because here's what's going to happen. Joe Hayden's gone after this year. So now you go into next season with Cam Sutton and James Pierre and Arthur Mollett. That's not good enough.
Yeah, and we talk about all the cap space that they're going to have, but let's look at the holes they're going to have too.
Yeah,
they're going to need a quarterback. They're going to need
offensive tackle and cornerback are the top 3, hands down.
Yeah, and look at the most expensive positions on the field. They're 3 of the most expensive positions on the field. So that
one of them you get a 1st round pick,
yeah.
And one of them you're 2 of them you choose free agency. But here's the thing, like here's another thing that I'm worried about, and a lot of people have pointed this out with the defense, is that now all of a sudden they're going back to this soft zone stuff. But that's
I don't like it.
Well, but it's hard to blame them for the coaches because again, the reason why they're not playing man is because when they played man a lot, they had Joe Hayden, Mike Hilton, Stevie Nelson, Cam Sutton, and they don't have those guys anymore.
Right. But here's where this is where I can't let the defense off the hook because everyone talks about, oh, well, they're always on the field because of the offense. And they're always this and up. But here's the thing. Okay, so the offense for the first time in 11 games hands you a 7-0 lead.
Mm-hmm.
What do you do with that lead?
Instantly give it up.
So
I don't want to hear that anyway, because again, that's fine. Okay, so then let's come to the terms and admit that this defense isn't
as good as we said it was.
Just like Ben, again, when the process of bringing Ben back was, he still has 1 more year left in him. He doesn't. And maybe that's no one's fault. Maybe it's Ben's fault. Maybe it's the Steelers not going, you know what? He started to really falter at the end of last year. I think his lower body is actually in worse shape than his upper body is.
Well, now he's dealing with a hip. He was dealing with a pec.
By the way, let me say something. If you are one of the, I don't care, because again, we need to stop using polarizing players on the field. You should just be judging what they do on the field. That's why you don't worship these people. But I got to say, Ben Roethlisberger, I don't care if he was a jerk or whatever early on in his career, because so many quarterbacks have been jerks. You hear jerk stories about John Elway and Dan Marino. A lot of those guys have been jerks. I saw people literally, they were like, the Steelers were like, Ben Roethlisberger has been added to the injury list with a hip. And I saw people literally giddy that's happened. And the problem, I think the reason why so many fans are quick to be in denial about his regression is because I feel, and I'm one of those guys where I feel like Ben never got the credit he deserved when he was in his prime. A lot of these pundits and a lot of these local media members have always been anti-Ben, and now they're dancing on his grave. And I really find that petty and
it is.
Yeah.
And like, this is, we talk about it a lot. I'm not the biggest Ben fan, but I'm not going to sit there and like, destroy the guy and pretend like he wasn't one of the top 5 quarterbacks of his generation. So, like, again, it's, this is, I like what you said. This is football. Like, let's not put these guys on a pedestal they don't need to be on.
And Ben's not the first guy to go out on a bad note. Brett Favre stuck around for way too many seasons.
Dude, look at Joe Namath. Look at Dan Marino's last game.
Yeah.
They got blown out in the playoffs.
It's funny because Peyton won the Super Bowl, but like if you go look at his stats, he was horrible.
Yeah, and if I'm not mistaken, didn't they bench him?
They did for Brock Osweiler.
That's right, Brock Osweiler. Man.
So if Peyton Manning, but that's also a good point where if Peyton Manning can get benched, so can Ben Roethlisberger.
Right, and like I think if we're gonna talk about Ben real quick, I think the thing with Ben, I think that he's one of those players that when he's retired and we have a couple of years,
it'll age like wine.
Look up. Yeah, because I forgot. Like even like I'm one of the biggest Steeler fans I know, and somebody had posted a video. It was just a highlight reel of like old Ben plays on Twitter, and like I forgot how good he was, man. Like I forgot the kind of things that vintage Ben
Here's a take for
was
you.
capable of.
Not including stats. If you just include highlight reels, I would consider Prime Ben's highlight reel one of the 5 most fun and exciting highlight rate tape that you'll see with like Mike Vick. Mike Vick probably has the most exciting highlight reel you'll ever see. And Mike Vick was never really an elite quarterback, but he was an elite athlete. But his highlight tape was just so fun to watch of all his best plays because he just makes all defenses.
Yeah,
he also had a cannon for an arm. But Ben's right up there. His 07 is, well, it's funny because 2014 was his best statistical season, which by the way is very underrated. He threw 34 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, and had like a 70% completion percentage. But my favorite season of Ben was 2007. He threw 32 touchdown passes, 10 picks, and he missed a game. And he also had 3 rushing touchdowns. So he scored 33 touchdowns in 15 games. And if you go back, that was the night that he threw 5 touchdown passes in the first half against the Ravens on Monday Night Football. That season, man, that run he had against Cleveland from the 30-yard line to win the game. I mean, and Terry Bradshaw, listen, this town was like F you to Terry Bradshaw after he won 4 Super Bowls and a league MVP. And then after a while, they were like, Terry, how come you don't like us anymore? And he's like, because you told me F you.
Yeah.
And I don't want to get to the point with Ben, but this has been a trend because Bradshaw didn't want to come back. Troy Polamalu for the longest time didn't want to come back. James Harrison was burning bridges. So I don't want to see that happen with Ben. I agree. As a Ben fan, it is tough to watch him play below his level, and that's why I kind of want him to just be like, you know what, I don't got it anymore.
Well, I think, and we can end this segment here. Just call this the Ben Roethlisberger segment. But I'm at the point with Ben where. And it's not to the degree that it was with Brett Favre, but I'm at the same point I was with Brett Favre with Ben right now, because it's not that I don't respect Ben Roethlisberger, the football player, and it's not that like I want to see him get hurt or end on a bad note or be done. I'm tired of all of the drama, good or bad, that comes with Ben Roethlisberger being the quarterback, and I'm not saying that he's the one that's causing all the drama.
He's played a part.
He can at times.
He's played a part.
But I'm not putting all of the blame on him. I'm putting some of the blame on fans, some of the blame on the coaching staff, some of the blame on him, some of the blame on ownership. And at some point in time, like, football for me is an escape from the real world. Football for me is fun. It's it's entertainment, and so I'm just tired of the circus that comes around whenever we talk about, good or bad, we talk about Ben Roethlisberger. I wish we could just take it for what it is, that he's a Hall of Fame quarterback. He's had a great career in Pittsburgh. He's a guy that, seemingly in his personal life had a second chance, whether deserved or not. He got a second chance. That's not the argument for this show.
I'm not going to say people don't deserve second chances.
Right. It's completely not the argument for this show, but it seems like he did well with that on a personal level.
And I love when people do that.
Yeah,
because I've done it.
And so, like, I'm to the point now with him where, like, let's just respect who he is, what he's done for this football franchise and this fan base, and just let it be that, and let's move on.
He can help that, because the longer he stays in there and woe is me and I'm going to tough it out, the more resentment he's going to get in the short term.
And I think that at the end of the day, he could shut all of us up.
Right.
By going out next week against Denver and throwing for 3 touchdowns and 250 yards.
Right. Now, yeah.
I'm not saying he needs a vintage Ben Roethlisberger game. I'm not saying that he needs to go out and throw 6 touchdowns and 400. Dude, all right, let me ask you this. If the Steelers win, let's do this. If the Steelers lose 27-21, okay, but Ben throws for 275 yards passing, 17-24,
2 touchdowns, no picks.
Two touchdowns, no picks.
Yeah.
You happy with that?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's my point.
I wanted out of the
that
Green
is
Bay
my
game,
point.
Actually,
that is my point. All he has to do is go and be an above-average quarterback behind an average offensive line and give the superstar running back the football, and I'm happy. I'm happy. That's all I want out of this football team right now. I want the defense to be better, and I want to see that on offense. And if they win doing that, that's fantastic. And if they lose, at least they lose respectable. So we're gonna take a break. We're gonna actually make a hard left turn here and get into some hockey talk, which is what Chad and I love. Right. That's what we do best. I want to talk some Drew O'Connor. He got a goal tonight, and I want to talk about what this Penguins team is going to look like while they're missing Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin. And maybe get your thoughts on some guys that you think might be surprises for the roster. So if you are a hockey fan, stick with us. If you're not a hockey fan, stick with us, and maybe we'll turn you into one. This is the Mad Chad and Eddie Show on the DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcast Network. All right, and welcome back to the Mad Chad and Eddie Show on the DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcast Network. I'm your host, Eddie Provident. With me is Mad Chad Nolan. Chad, I want to talk hockey with you, man, because that's our bread and butter. That's where we
starts next week. For real.
It starts a week from tonight. We'll be talking about a Pittsburgh Penguins Tampa Bay Lightning game, and covering whether or not the Pens won and how they look doing it, and but right now there's a lot of question marks, and these are I think there's short-term question marks. There's a whole nother list of long-term question marks. But Sidney Crosby's out with a wrist injury. Now, Sid has skated, I think, every day for the last 2 weeks or week and a half. Actually, when we went up to do some photography work for the website, and no, they weren't letting people in while Sid was skating. So he's skating before media gets there. So we think that he's going to be back within the first 2 or 3 weeks of the season. That seems to be what people are saying. We're hoping for that. We know that Malkin is at least the first 2 months of the season, and then we'll find out from there. So we have a little bit of a void at center. Just found out on Sunday that Jake Gensel tested positive for COVID, which is the second Penguin who's tested positive for COVID, because Zach Aston Reese tested positive. Aston Reese, mild symptoms, Gensel asymptomatic. So that's good. That's good news. They seem to be, for the most part, healthy. But what that does, Chad, is that leaves a lot of openings on the forward depth chart. And right now, I think everybody agrees Jeff Carter's center. He's going to be the first line center. It looks like they've been playing around with Evan Rodriguez at second line center.
I don't like that. I like Rodriguez, but it's fun. Why do people
Bluger has been in his same role. I think they love putting Bluger in his role. And then, there's kind of a free for all for the fourth line center and what that's going to look.
So there's two dark horses, and the guys that have stuck out the most to me and to a lot of other hockey pundits is Drew O'Connor first and foremost. And he had another nice game Tuesday night against the Sabres. And I always tell people, I have no problem admitting I was wrong. Back in the day, I was big time wrong about Jake Gensel. When he first came up, I was like, too small, blah, 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 blah. I ate crow for years on that one, but I have no. Here's the thing: if the players prove me wrong on my favorite teams, I don't lose in that situation.
Now, Drew O'Connor, correct me if I'm wrong, is a left winger. So,
but he played center the last two games.
Did he play center? Okay, cool. So they're putting him there. All right, that's good.
And the crazy thing is, and I'm hoping to actually try to maybe get him on the show at some point because I want to ask him.
Cool.
I want to ask him about because he's physically faster. So I don't know how that happens. To be honest, is it just did he hire a speed coach because or is the game just slowing down for him and he's been training his ass off because he if you go watch any of the games he appeared in last year, I wasn't impressed. I know that they liked him, but I wasn't impressed. And I was like, it's an AHL fringe guy. He looks like. I don't think he's going to be an all-star player, but he looks like a
but he looks like a bottom six NHL forward, which is what they need.
Well, so I heard a great talk, or I was listening to one of DK's Daily Shots, and he had talked about the fact that when Mike Sullivan first came up, he had no problem putting young guys in prominent roles: Matt Murray, Ollie Mata, John Marino, Jake Gensel, Brian Rust. And then all of a sudden and I don't know if that was Rutherford or who, but after a while, it was no, he's not trusting young guys anymore. Remember Ricola? We try to get Ricola in the lineup all the time. And he's like, no, that ain't going to happen. We're going to put Jack Johnson in the lineup over him. And I would like Sullivan to go back to his roots. And I know some of the veterans might be more defensively responsible, but in the NHL, in a salary cap league, you have to try to get something out of your young prospects,
especially with the cap where it's at right now, where it's just not going to go up.
Cap, yeah, and because that's why it worked. They had Jake Gensel out there scoring 14 goals in the playoffs, and he was only making $800,000 towards the cap.
Yeah, those are the things that help you win back-to-back.
Look at Colorado, the way they're set up right now. I mean, half their guys in their team are still on entry-level contracts,
and the ones that aren't have been taking sweetheart deals for the team. So.
Yeah, so that's what you have to do, and especially as we transition towards the eventual doomsday of Crosby and Malkin doing what Ben Roethlisberger is doing and going, oh no, Sid can't do those things anymore. He's not deking through three guys anymore.
Oh, hey man, maybe Sid can just be the hockey Tom Brady.
He could be. He could. If anybody can do it, he can, or Connor McDavid can.
I was listening to the Steve Dangle podcast a couple weeks ago. It was last week, and they were talking about the top players in the NHL, and this is coming out of market. This is out of market. This is a Toronto-based podcast. And it was actually really cool to hear this from an outside of Pittsburgh hockey talk show. He said that there's no doubt that, the top 2 or 3 players in the NHL are probably Austin Matthews, Connor McDavid, and Nathan MacKinnon. And probably, McDavid 1, McKinnon 2, Matthews 3.
To be honest, Panarin's up there for me as well.
Panarin, yeah, but if you're, those are the guys now. Those are the young guys.
Actually, Draisaitl might be the closest next guy.
Draisaitl's up there for sure. But those were the 3 that they mentioned. But the one thing, so then they talked. They brought up Sidney Crosby, and the thing that they said about Sidney Crosby is, the young guys, they're doing great, they're doing their thing, but there's still nobody on a mental level that is better than Sidney Crosby. Nobody thinks the game better than Sid, which is, I agree with that. And as long as Sid has that edge, that mental edge, I think he's going to be one of the top centers, one of the top players in hockey.
I tweeted something last night. They were reminiscing about Crosby in the Olympics because Crosby just made the Olympic team again. Which, I mean, did anybody think he?
Yeah, they had to give their first three.
But Sidney Crosby, for all you young aspiring athletes or if there's a pro athlete listening to us, for one thing, let me know. And secondly, I think Crosby sets the perfect example of Sidney Crosby literally changed the style of play in his second half of the career to accommodate the fact that, there's going to be a lot more faster guys in the league. And what he's done is he's essentially become a two-way forward. He knows he doesn't have the ability to go out there and score 120 points a year, but if he can play solid defense against the other team's top line and still score his usual 80 to 100 points, that's what's best for this team. And that started to develop in the 2004 Sochi games where him and Kunitz were on Team Canada on a line, and Crosby didn't blow away the stat line.
Yeah, but that Sochi team was maybe the best defensive hockey team that I've ever seen in my lifetime.
Crosby's back checking and forechecking in that Olympics was unreal, and that developed. And people cry, well, he didn't deserve those Conn Smythes, blah 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 blah. But again, it wasn't all about stats. It was about the fact that Crosby was.
They let up 3 goals in 6 games.
Yes.
Think about that, Chad.
Against a stacked Sharks team.
Well, no, I'm talking about the Sochi team. No, the Sochi team.
Yeah.
So that Sochi, Canada team, dude. They let up 3 goals in 6 games in the Olympics.
Crosby led all the forwards in ice time. And that's against the U.S. That was against Russia. That was against Sweden. Dude, that, to me, is one of the craziest stats for an Olympic, like a best-on-best international hockey tournament. They let up 3 goals in 6 games. But it also just goes to show you how modest and humble that Crosby is, that he would be willing to change his play style, not only for him, but just knowing that hey, he could go out there and be like, you know what, I'm chasing these points. I want to finish top 5 in points.
But what's crazy about that, Chad, is we're sitting here talking about him changing his game up to a two-way forward, and he still averages over a point per game.
Yeah. But I think he had to.
Think about that, dude. We're talking about him being a defensive forward now, or at least a two-way forward that averages over a point per game. Like this is Sidney Crosby. This is why he's a top 5 of all time in my book.
Absolutely.
Like he is, I don't know who you want to take out, but like when I think of the top 5 all time, when it's all like when Sid's career is said and done, it's in no particular order, because that's a whole different argument. That's a whole different show. That could be one of our timeless shows that we do. But in no particular order for me, it is Gretzky, Lemieux, or Crosby, and probably Gordie Howe, because of what Gordie Howe meant for the game, and what he did.
I don't care about what people meant to the game.
I mean, if you also look at what, like, him compared to his peers, what he did, there's a reason why Wayne Gretzky calls him the greatest player of all time. But again, different argument for a different time.
I would take Gordie Howe out and put Lindstrom in, and then just have the same list as you.
And then, but the point is Sid's a top 5 player of all time, right? And that's the second time that we've had a top 5 player of all time. You could argue that with Jágr we've had a third, because Jágr's put enough numbers up that he's at least a top 10, top 12 of all time.
Championships.
Yeah. So, point being, we're witnessing greatness with Sidney Crosby, and when he comes back, please enjoy it and cherish it.
Let me ask you this.
We're not going to get this for much longer.
Let me ask you this. So, who is a player? Because again, no Crosby, no Malkin for at least the first 4 to 6 weeks, then Crosby will come back, and then eventually Malkin come back. Who is a player that you think has the ability and needs to step up their game just a little bit more than what they've done in the past? And I'll give you mine.
Radim Zohorna.
Okay, I think he's a dark horse.
I think he's gonna make the team as he's gonna make the team as the 4th line center, in my opinion. And I think that they need him. The little flashes that he showed last year, like where can't remember who the game was against, but he had 2 goals, and one of them he legitimate. I'm not comparing Radim Zohorna to Mario Lemieux, but with that size and stride, the one goal that he scored looked like a Mario Lemieux-esque
Funny,
goal.
DK said it was I think DK said it was Malkin-esque.
Okay, yeah, but my point being is
Yeah.
Radim Zohorna is the guy that has the size and has the tools to where he's not going to be a 25 goal scorer in the NHL, but I think that Radim Zohorna could be a 10 to 15 goal guy. He could center a third or fourth line, and he can give you those needed minutes that when you're missing a Sidney Crosby or an Evgeny Malkin, that's the kind of guy that you need to fill in.
Definitely.
So Radim Zohorna is definitely my dark horse, my guy that I think, like, if he steps his game up a bit and makes this roster, he could find a home in the bottom six.
I wasn't even thinking dark horse. I just meant in general. The guy that I think can and has had a pretty decent preseason is Kasperi Kapanen. I think this is a guy.
Yeah, he's got everything, man. He just needs to put it together.
He's gonna get some power play time with Malkin and Crosby out, and I think he has the ability with his shot and his skill to help alleviate some of the stuff maybe that Jared McCann did last year.
Listen, I took my brother-in-law with me to the to camp on Saturday. And with them playing Friday night, it was a thin group of guys practicing. Kapanen was one of the guys that was on the ice. And dude, he is fast. He is incredibly fast. Like, if he's not one of the top 5 fastest dudes in the NHL, then I don't know, man, because like, he can skate. Like, if he can put the skating together with that shot, yeah, I'm with you.
If I'm ranking skaters on a team, it's Letang 1, Kapanen 2, probably.
Yeah, dude, that dude is incredible on skates. He really. I think that if they're going to make a playoff, if they're going to make a run this year,
yeah,
especially with Malkin being out, and I know Kapanen's a winger, not a center, but someone has to produce the score, or, replace the scoring, and he's a prime suspect to do so.
And lastly, the 2 other guys that I think, and now I personally thought they finished the season. They got off to a rough start, but they finished the season pretty on a good note last year, despite the fact they lost the playoffs, but it wasn't their fault. Is both Marino and Pettersson. This is Marino's 3rd year. A little bit of a sophomore slump last year, but I thought he picked it up at the end of the year. Pettersson is a guy that for some reason a lot of Pens fans don't like, which is weird because they all cry about, oh, defensemen need to play defense first. Well, that's literally what
Pettersson does.
And he kind of does it pretty well. It's because he doesn't hit people is really what it is.
Yeah.
But if Pettersson and Marino can get back to the performance that they had the 2 years ago, that's going to go a long way because I think Letang and Dumoulin will be fine. I think they'll obviously be one of the top 10 pairs in the league. And then if Marino and Pettersson can, because their defensive depth is not great, especially on the right side. So John Marino, the Pens cannot afford John Marino to have another down year, especially the fact they gave him a contract based off of 1 season.
It's time for him to put up or shut up.
Yep. I will absolutely throw a mulligan out for a sophomore slump. I expected him to have a sophomore slump, honestly, especially how good he was as a rookie. Now it's time to take the good, the bad, and we should come to a nice balanced. And I don't expect anything more than him just being decent. If he's a little bit above average, if Pettersson is a little bit above average, then this team is going to be much better just based on default of that.
Yeah. I'll give you one more name before we wrap the hockey talk up. And at first you're going to be like, wait, like everybody knows what to expect from this guy. But Brian Rust. Yeah. And here's why. Okay. We know what to expect from Brian Rust because for the last 2 years, he's shown us what he can do. But Brian Rust is going into a contract season. Mm-hmm. Okay. He's probably priced himself out of Pittsburgh.
Maybe.
I actually think that if he does what he did last year or better, we're not going to re-sign. The Penguins won't re-sign him because I don't think they'll be able to afford him, especially with the flat cap.
If he wants more than $5 million a year, I would let him go anyway. So,
but here's the thing: if Brian Rust comes into this season and says, Gino's hurt, Sid's out for the first couple weeks,
right?
Someone needs to step up and put this team on their shoulders. Now, he's proven to be a 20, 30 goal guy. He was on a 35, 40 goal pace last year before he got hurt for an 82-game season. I think Brian Rust is a prime candidate to be the guy to step it up and really, turn the offense on and like fill that void that we're going to be missing on the top six.
Him, Gensel, Zucker, and Kapanen all have we need those guys to come through even more than ever.
But Rust is the guy that I look at that has shown that he can do it the last couple of years. Like we know what to expect.
And
from
I
him.
think guys feed off of the way he plays a lot too. Because he plays a very fast, aggressive game.
If he finds another gear,
mm-hmm.
he's gonna it's gonna really help this team this season, but he's gonna get himself paid in the offseason.
Always bet on players on a contract year.
So Rust is another guy I'm excited to see this year.
I think he's gonna throw.
I think he's got a lot to play for.
30-goal season and 60 to 70 points. It's a contract year. I'll never bet against guys in a contract year.
Yep, absolutely. So that's the hockey talk for today. Before we go, I told Chad I wanted to talk about one thing. I wanted to get in. I want to talk about the Pirates.
Do you need me here for this?
I want to talk about the Pirates for 2 minutes just because I got to go to the game on Saturday. I got to see O'Neal Cruz's debut, and I'm going to say the most unpopular thing in Pittsburgh sports. I think that there legitimately is reason to be optimistic about this baseball team. And listen, I know that it was manufactured Saturday night because it was fireworks night. It was O'Neal Cruz's debut.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Did they shoot off fireworks for his first home run, even though they were down by multiple runs?
I wasn't there for the Sunday.
Oh, you weren't there for the Sunday one.
They always shoot off fireworks for home runs.
Even if they're losing 10-0.
Even if they're losing, they shoot off fireworks for a home run.
As a player, I would decline that.
But here's the thing. O'Neal Cruz in his fourth at bat in the majors hit the hardest ball hit in the StatCast era for the Pittsburgh Pirates. 118.2 mile an hour. No Pirate has hit 117. And he hit 118 mile an hour. It was a single to center field. So we got to see him. Brian Reynolds finishes the season above 300 batting and should be, even though the Pirates only won 61 games, Brian Reynolds should be in the NL MVP conversation. He shouldn't be the NL MVP, but he should be in the conversation and should at least get an honorable mention because he's been that good this season. We found out today from Ben Cherington that they're optimistic about Ke'Bryan Hayes' wrist injury and that they think that it's not going to linger into next year, next baseball season. We also he was one of the top-ranked third baseman, defensive third baseman in baseball, despite missing a bunch of time with injuries. We got to see Roansy Contreras come up the last week or two of the season. And here's the thing. This is why I'm talking about this. If you went to that baseball game on Saturday and didn't know what the Pirates record was, okay, and you just strictly based it on the crowd and the atmosphere and the way that baseball team played, Chad, they were down 5-0 in the fifth inning, and that O'Neal Cruz's first single as a Major League Baseball player was an RBI single that lit a rally that eventually got them to an 8-6 win. Okay, if you would have just gone to that game with a blank slate and said, "Is that Pirates team a playoff team, or is this a playoff atmosphere?" You might have said yes. Okay. And that gives me so much hope because next year is going to be crazy. Next year is not going to, don't expect a winning season out of them next year. Don't expect them to be a playoff team next year, but expect to see a lot of young guys coming up and making plays and doing some crazy things. Like, look at what Cole Tucker did on Friday night. Cole Tucker had a triple, a grand slam, and two of the nicest catches that you're going to see in baseball. Okay. So all I'm saying is the Pirates have some young guys coming up through the system that are going to be exciting to watch. And within the next 2 or 3 years, they are going to be a competitive baseball team. And
we hope.
We hope. And I think that I'm confident in saying that. And man, the atmosphere the other night on the next to last game of the season, when it was completely meaningless, was actually fun. I enjoyed myself. I was texting Gary Morgan after the game, and I couldn't get over how much fun I had at that baseball game. And so all I'm saying is, if you're looking for any kind of optimism, if you're a Pirates fan, they've got some fun, good players coming up through the system. O'Neal Cruz being the main guy. I mean, this kid he's the real deal. So I just wanted to throw that out there about the Pirates.
Wouldn't that be ironic though, if the next couple of years the Penguins and the Steelers go this way and the Pirates go this way,
go up?
And
dude, it's got a chance to happen.
Also,
I hope it doesn't. I hope all three of them.
Here's a hot take for you. It will end the show, but I actually hate the term bandwagon fan, because the Steelers are probably going to go through a downturn. I don't know how long, but they're probably going to not be a Super Bowl contender for the next couple of years, in my opinion. The Penguins, once we get to the end of Crosby, Malkin era, it's going to be bad, and you're going to see empty seats at the Heinz Field, and the Heinz Field is already starting to have empty seats a lot. And you're going to, if the Steelers have a losing season this year, you'll see empty seats there. I promise you will. Mm-hmm. I don't blame anyone in today's economy. And I'm a single father. Like, it's an expensive day for, like, if I want to take my son to a Penguin game, drive down, pay for parking, pay for the tickets are always expensive. The concessions are expensive. And my time is valuable. Everybody's time is valuable because everybody has a busy life. So I don't blame fans for not being enthusiastic. I'm a diehard fan. I'm going to go spend hundreds of dollars to watch the Penguins and Steelers if they stink. No, I'm not. I'll go to the games because me and you, I mean, for one thing, you and I get paid to talk about them. And I am a fan, but I don't blame anybody for losing a little bit of enthusiasm through the down. I'm not saying like, yeah, F that team, blah, blah, blah. But I think a lot of these teams ask and expect a lot out of their fans. It's their job to provide entertainment and a good team for the fans. It's not the other way around.
Mm-hmm. And I think that Saturday was, for me, a little slice of what it could be.
Oh, this team, the Pirates fans deserve a goddamn winning team. Let's just say that.
Yeah. It was just, for me, it was a little slice of what could happen in the next couple of years, and hopefully what will happen. And we actually, Gary and I have been talking. Gary Morgan, one of the hosts of Pirates Fan Forum. I'm going to be hopping on their show in the next few weeks, and I think we're going to try to get Gary or Jim or both of them on our show, just to kind of go through like a flyover of the Pirates prospects. And what
they
the farm
talk all the
system
sports
looks
anyway,
like.
so that's fine.
So yeah, we're gonna try to do some cross promotion and get the guys on our show. But that's it for this week. We appreciate you making it this far. If you have, for Mad Chad Nolan, I'm Eddie Provident. This has been the Mad Chad and Eddie Show on the DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcast Network. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. If you're listening audio, subscribe on whatever Apple Podcast, Spotify, whatever you listen to us on. If you're on YouTube watching the video, make sure you hit subscribe, hit the like button, hit the notification bell, and check out all of the other podcasts that are on our platform as well, because there's pretty much something for everybody. We have a ton of shows, we have a ton of stuff, whether it's college sports, pro sports, hockey, baseball, football. We've got it all. So again, for Chad, for DK Pittsburgh Sports, I'm Eddie Provident. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week.